From losing his father at an early age to winning an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck to having to deal with those neck issues throughout his wrestling career, achieving much success, multiple world heavyweight championships, WWE, TNA, the Indies, battling addiction, battling back, and now Kurt Angle is still with us. He's able to be a family man. He's able to be there with his beautiful wife. I don't know how Kurt Angle is still alive, but I am so grateful that he is. I'm John Recton with my review of Angle. Pretty straight and to the point, honestly, with that title right there. WWE Studios and Peacock paired up to do this story about Angle, Kurt Angle, Kirk Angel as it were, as Chris Jericho once coined him. Arguably one of the best in-ring talents to ever fucking do it. I mean, there were no matches you could watch involving Kurt Angle. Yeah, once maybe he got over the whole, initial, WWE debut in those first couple months. There were very few times you could watch Kurt Angle in the ring and not see that he was giving it his all. Even through all the pain, all the injuries, all that, the knee injuries, the neck injuries, and the pain pill addictions and all that. And honestly, once again, I'm amazed that Kurt Angle is still alive. And I'm glad that he's here to tell his story, because I fear with the amount of abuse his body has gone through, I don't know if he would be here in another decade to tell that story. I'm not trying to be sad. It's just, God, you hear him now. I mean, he seems like he's in a good place, and that's great. And he's overcome addiction, because a lot of people, wrestlers or otherwise, don't fucking do that without relapsing, without whatever. But he's still going strong, doing some great things. Yes, a lot of the stuff was talked about with the WWE and A&E biography, WWE Legends episode about Kurt. This was a little bit longer because I think with commercials that was around 85 minutes. And this spent a lot, and I mean a lot of time. I'd argue 80% of this particular documentary, biography, whatever piece, whatever, label you want to put on this piece, spent on his time outside of wrestling. Pro wrestling, that is, because a lot of time, pretty much over the first half, just about was on his early life, his Olympic pursuit, Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck. And then about his new wife, they skipped over Karen, which was probably smart, because this is more about him overcoming stuff, and that they could have done a 3-hour piece and still not covered everything, but they decided to hit the highlights. So I don't know how long this one's going to go, because a lot of this is treading familiar ground, but some good pieces from Kurt and some good talking heads. Gerald Briscoe chimed in, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, various others from the Olympic Games, a lot of world champions chiming in, a lot of them. I mean, you'll have to watch and write down these names, because there were a lot of goddamn names. Family members, his brothers talking. Kurt wants to be remembered not for his mistakes, but his accomplishments, while fully embracing that he made a lot of mistakes and says he's not perfect. I still argue Kurt is one of the best to ever do it. He's one of the best of the last 20 goddamn years. 25 or so years. And just looking at all the injuries he had, I mean, it was a miracle he was able to put on the 5-star classics that he did. And he put on a lot of 5-star classics, despite what Dave Meltzer and, Mr. Shibata had his brain removed and put back in, just because, we were straight out of the Treehouse of Horror, Mr. Burns and Homer Simpson Frankenstein episode. But anyway, the old footage, pics of his earlier life, brothers and family friends chime in. He had a good bond, a great bond with his mother and sister. More stuff on the sister later. The dad was an alcoholic. Had a construction accident. Hearing him recount this stuff again, even though some of that was recounted on the A&E biography, a lot of comparisons of that. It was sad. It was really good. Just hearing how he described how the mother and sister reacted, that was really sad. And then he got into playing high school football. Keep moving. That's what he told himself. He had a game for the ages, 2 touchdowns with a fullback and interception, fumble recoveries, and a bunch of tackles. And he did really, really good. But his love was wrestling. Did great in amateur wrestling. Bob Bub of, the college that he went to. He was the coach. Randy Couture talks. Speaking of somebody riddled with CTE, there's Randy Couture. So look at the amount of movies that he's been in and the type of movies he's been in. Don't think the man necessarily exactly has anything other than scrambled eggs for brains. So the match was Sylvester Turkay, I believe is how it was pronounced, on WWE CW programming. He chimes in. It was cool to hear from him. His WWE run didn't work out all that well. He was not bad in the ring, from what I remember, but they featured him either before he was ready or in the wrong gimmick. I don't necessarily know, but what 2007 he was gone? So the Oklahoma City footage, the analysis of the match that he had with Turkay, that was good stuff. The Olympic, trial building and all that. More footage of Foxcatcher Farms in with John DuPont, who was eccentric, a gun owner and a millionaire, and loved wrestling, but was also a nut, I guess really we should say. He probably had some undiagnosed medical issues, I would imagine. Or he was just justifiably insane his whole life and he finally just snapped. So, Dave Schultz, no, not that one, the coach that helped Kurt. He wrestled at the 1984 Olympics. And Nancy, Dave's widow, she talked. She was the one to set up a thing that Kurt used as a platform to get into the Olympic Games. And Kurt would train all day, to the point he was exhausted, and then the training would really begin. So, I cannot honestly believe that Kurt somehow didn't die doing that training, just the way he described it. And I believe Kurt did every single thing that he said, because they showed home video footage. He would run. He would carry people on his shoulders, doing stuff up hills, running up the hill. As that song, I believe, from Stranger Things, says. I've never actually seen Stranger Things, but somebody told me that song, Running Up the Hill, was from that. So, DuPont just went insane one day. This is right after Kurt had beaten somebody that had beaten him 3 years prior. So he was really on the right path. Dave was shot. Nancy started her own thing with sponsors and all that, and was going to help out the wrestlers that lived on the Foxcatcher farm. So check out Google and check out pieces on that Foxcatcher training facility deal, because it's nuts. It's nuts. I can't encapsulate it in this review. It's just nuts. He ended up breaking his neck during the lead up to the Olympics. 4 broken vertebrae. He had 12 shots of Novocaine, which might have been where some addictions possibly started, because he was basically just totally fucked. I noted we're over 40 minutes into it, and we haven't even gotten to any of his WWE stuff, so they're really going deep on this Olympic stuff. Olympic trial footage, everybody kept going for the neck. He would eventually beat the Iranian, and I ran so far away. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He won the gold. It was hard fought. He thanked his mom. He was emotional. All that. He exhausted the Iranian plane. I'm saying the Iranian because if I tried to pronounce his name, it would sound like a verbal evisceration and a word salad and a letter salad. But celebration footage was great. He exhausted the Iranian. He beat him. The reflection on the train and all that. And then Kurt wondered, what's next? Ronda Rousey chimed in a little bit for what she was worth, which really wasn't much. I mean, and I know why they had Ronda's comments, because Kurt and Ronda teamed up against Triple H and Stephanie at Mania 34 in a match that honestly had no right being as good as it was. There is no reason, even with Triple H and Kurt involved, and Kurt at that state, that match should have been as good as it was. But they skipped over the ECW stuff, where the crucifixion of the Sandman. And Kurt didn't want to be part of that. And I always find it funny, and this, I know it was in Forever Hardcore, and that was back in 2005, but Sandman's like, oh, well, he didn't like that, but then a couple years later, he's in WWE, and Austin's getting crucified, and did he tell them to go out and apologize? And, well, here's the difference. Okay, should that whole thing with Undertaker and Austin have been done? Probably not. I mean, I found it funny. Should the thing with Sandman and Raven been done? No, I found it funny because I'm not religious and I don't really care about religion. But in WWE, it was more silly. Yeah, it was still ridiculous, but it was more silly. In ECW, let's make it real by literally looking at it, we're putting him on a cross, and also it wasn't good. I mean, it just wasn't. But in all seriousness, I don't blame Kurt for not wanting to do that. And then they skip over, I think, how they gave him the same deal that they gave Mark Henry, which is a $2.5 million deal over 10 years. So it was like $250,000 a year with a chance to earn more money, or somewhere around that, because they gave Mark Henry that kind of deal. And Kurt turned it. It says, "I'll take it if I never lose a match," because he's a legit athlete. Mark Henry got the deal and spent the better part of the first 4 years either on the shelf or in bad creative, so maybe they didn't want to make that deal. Kurt came back a little bit later. Is that deal on the table? No, but you can come train. He went to train. They showed a little bit of the Memphis footage. I believe it was Memphis. And he was trained there, and that was cool. I mean, they didn't show much of it. I kind of wish they would have gone a little more in-depth on some of his training, how he got the fundamentals, but the promos were a little bit rough. And then his Survivor Series 99 debut against Meat. I believe that was Shawn Stasiak's last match in WWE, at least, until going to WCW for roughly, and I always forget, because they had him do quite a bit in WCW. And I always forget that it was not even a year and a half before he was back in WWE as Shawn Stasiak, and that stuff could be told and everything, and Shawn Stasiak seems to be doing very well for himself outside of wrestling, and that's great. So, this is where they out and out lied, though, or they had Rock lie, or maybe Rock has just done too much of his own vitamins, too many of his own vitamins, and forgot, but all this stuff going on, they put all this footage together. They would go from 99 to like 2000, 2001. And they would even show some clips where not Triple H, but Angle was talking about how he loved Austin. He got into this whole thing and he wanted to do this stuff. And then they would show footage as late as Shelton Benjamin getting kicked by Shawn Michaels in May of 2005 when Kurt was well into his WWE run. And that they're great athletes. And there's no doubt a ton of great athletes in WWE and in wrestling in general throughout the years. Some that got featured properly, some that didn't. Some that maybe got featured a little bit too much when they weren't ready. But nevertheless, the whole point of this is, Rock is like, the company hadn't gone public yet, so it was the Wild Wild West. And they mentioned this after his debut against Meat, which was November of 99, mid-November of 99. The same pay-per-view, by the way, where they advertised that Austin would be part of it, even though they knew his neck issues were going to prevent that, and it was going to be Big Show subbing for Austin, and everybody went, nothing against Big Show, it's just he'd been turned face to heel, and he'd only been with the company 9 months. But the whole point of Rock saying, it wasn't a publicly traded company yet. Ask you in the comments, when did WWE go public? If you're a longtime fan like me, you had an idea at least of the time period. And I'm letting you think about that for a second, because I'm going to tell you the date. October 19th, 1999. About a month before Kurt's debut, or in-ring debut. Yeah, they've been doing the vignettes, and they've been doing this kind of stuff. But it wasn't a publicly traded company yet. They mashed up this footage and all these clips and everything and all this stuff. Like they had Rock facing off. They showed a little bit of something, I think, where he's facing Chris Benoit. You could just see him in the corner over there. Renowned murderer Chris Benoit, by the way. But it wasn't publicly traded yet. Except Chris Benoit, along with Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko, came into the company in late January of 2000. I just can't get over that when they flat out lie about that shit. Wasn't publicly traded when Kurt made his debut. Yeah, it fucking was. Don't have the people goddamn lie when these facts can be looked at. Nevertheless, on the highlights of the Attitude Era, Rock, Flair, Austin, and others chime in. They praise Kurt's work. How could you not look at Kurt? The intensity, integrity, and intelligence, the three eyes. Kurt got the entertainment aspect very quickly. Very fucking quickly. Made it easy for fans to hate him, but made it easy for fans to love him at the same time. Because you could appreciate the fuck out of what he could do. And just the fact that he was crisp and smooth and clean and so skilled. And I mean, I imagine still would be if he wasn't broken down. Spirit is willing, but the body's weak. But I did love the thing with Rey Mysterio. Yeah, you're a boy in a man's world, and I'm a man who loves to play with boys. Kurt's like, no. And he's trying to dig himself out of it. And it goes back to me. The Dragon Ball Z abridged thing. How good are you digging holes? I mean, other than the one you're digging for yourself right now. Clips of, the clips are all over the place. We go from 99 to like 2005. And the "you suck" chants that at first were directed at him. I believe that was in a feud with Edge, where Edge said that. He got his head shaved. And then the moonsault off the cage in, I believe, was it May of 99 or June of 99? Not 99, but 2001. He made that moonsault off the cage in 2001. Who did he face in that cage? Oh, he faced renowned murderer Chris Benoit. That's right. That's what he did. And then JR even chimes in. I think this was filmed a bit ago. And I mean, it was probably filmed during JR's, time in AEW, but I think it was filmed before recent health issues really took hold, which thankfully JR seems to be bouncing back from, and that's great. SummerSlam 2001 versus Austin. Kurt talked very briefly, but in some good detail about the match that he had against The Undertaker at No Way Out 2006, a classic, still one that holds up today. And besides all the ref bumps, the match with Austin at SummerSlam 2001 was great. He had incredible feuds. He had incredible matches. He really was perfect. He really was the perfect wrestler. It's a shame that... it's a shame his TNA run was longer than his WWE run, and more people saw his WWE run when people didn't see them equally. And he was doing such great work in both those companies. In-ring was impeccable. His wife, Giovanna, God, she's beautiful. That with respect. She talks meeting him. They head off. The wedding footage. Pain pills, booze came into play. Broke his neck in 2003. Decided to do WrestleMania 19. Could have been paralyzed or died. Didn't. Still did it. Did a less invasive surgery to bounce back. And broke his neck several goddamn times. And then I believe it was WrestleMania 20. He did against Eddie. They said, you're taking some time off. 5 or 6 months. It was actually more like about 4. But nevertheless. He was pretty much back on the road doing run. I think he did a run in a cage match against Eddie and JBL July 15th, 2004, I believe. But then SummerSlam 04 returns completely glossed over. Him and Eddie had some incredible matches. And then he suffered more neck issues in 2006. They skipped over his matches, besides one little clip, his matches with Cena in 2005. They were great. Talked about facing Shawn Michaels at Mania 21. One of the best goddamn matches in Mania history, I would argue. It was amazing that Shawn Michaels could actually wrestle like that because he was seeing 2 Kurt Angles at the same time. That's mean, but I don't care. And the addiction built and built. Vince wanted him to get clean. Others wanted him to get clean. Kurt felt he didn't have a problem. The stuff about his sister was really tragic, and that was talked about in the A&E biography. But just saving her money, having her come up to live with the mother, paid off the debt, and then she was still not getting clean, and he didn't talk to her. Then she OD'd from, I believe, heroin, I think is what he said. And he wished he had talked to her. And then that was the day she died was the day before the Iron Man match against Brock. I did not know that. Now, maybe it was mentioned in the A&E biography, and because that was so long ago, even though it really wasn't that long ago, I think a year or so, I forgot that it was actually that close. And still, the fact he went out there and had one of the best Iron Man matches in WWE history. Then the addiction, 65 Vicodin in a day. He had a calendar where he would map out contacting somebody to get him illegal stuff from Mexico, and doctors who would give him this stuff. It was a miracle again that he is still alive. And they tried to make him go to rehab. He said no, no, no. He went to TNA. That was very glossed over. And yes, JR did say the debacle of a TNA run. It was a debacle from a management standpoint, not a work standpoint. He had a great series of matches with Samoa Joe. Great match with Abyss. AJ Styles. He would always have top-tier matches. But he was breaking down, and Dixie didn't know what the fuck to do. Because she never knew what the fuck to do with the goddamn company. But as far as his work was great. So it wasn't a complete debacle, just for his health, which is most important. And his wife basically, after 4 DUIs in 5 years, they skipped over the Raka-Khan thing, which that piece of shit deserves to be jailed for all the stuff she's done. Get clean or I'm gone, is what Giovanna said. Kurt did. Withdrawal was tough. 5 days of withdrawal, and he basically felt like he was unfortunately going to die. He would rather have died than gone through that. And that's when he says, I can't go back to that. He had a knee injury. The wife said, you can't take pain pills for it. You have to manage this. How am I going to deal with the pain? You find a way. We will find a way. Because she was pissed and she was fed up, and I don't blame her. You can only go through so much with somebody you love dearly before you have to put your goddamn foot down. This isn't my foot, but, nevertheless, I want to stomp on the floor because the producer's sleeping outside, and I don't want to wake up the cat. So, he does what he can, managing the pain. Training, neck stuff and everything, and working on and doing yoga and stuff like that. He wants to raise his kids, raise them right. He goes into the Hall of Fame. And then what's his legacy? I would argue one of the greatest of the modern era. Is he one of the greatest of all time? He is certainly one of the greatest athletes of all time. But that's such a wide berth, because then you take in U.S. wrestling, you take in Canadian wrestling, you take in Japanese wrestling, UK wrestling. It would be hard to argue that, but is he one of the best of modern time? Absolutely. Especially from an in-ring standpoint. And that right there is Angle. So yeah, some of the stuff, especially if you've seen the WWE on A&E biography piece, if you haven't, watch this and watch both of them and see what they left out. It was great. It was heartbreaking. I'm glad Kurt is still here. Because I don't know how many more years we got, because the human body can only fight for so long. I'm not trying to be dark. I'm not wishing anything, but I'm glad Kurt is here to tell his story while he can. So, agree, disagree what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rethlin. I'll see you soon.